Hello guys, Tomyone here from Coding for Youth and welcome to my 2022 lessons in our Python series. So far so good. We have really talked about a lot about Python, starting from the very rudiments. We've discussed a lot of things. We've talked about variables in Python, data types, operators, and conditional statements, flow control, and all that. Okay, so in this lesson, I just want to briefly talk about looping in Python. I know I talked about the while loop while about a lesson or two ago. So I just want to talk a little bit more on looping in Python. But before we start, we want to encourage you, of course, to learn every day by practice. Harness all the resources we have online. If you encounter any challenge, a lot of communities that can help. We have Stack Overflow, and of course, Google can always give you, a guide on whatsoever you're searching for. Okay, so I also want to encourage you to subscribe to this channel to keep me encouraged, and also leave your comments at the comment section and like the video. Okay, so let's just jump into what we have to discuss today. So we're going to be talking about um, Python loop, and basically we have two primitive loops in Python: the while and the for loop. Okay, well, when we talk about loop, is more like you want to iterate over something so far a particular condition is satisfied, and we can of course loop over virtually all the iterable data types we have discussed, like the lists, the this the tuple, the set, and the dictionary. In fact, even strings, we can loop over strings. And we're going to be looking at this briefly, okay? And then after that, we'll do a little bit of inputs validation with Python using a while loop. So, of course, I don't expect this lesson to be too long, but let's just look at how it goes. So, I'll be using my text editor here, Python. Uh, VS Code rather for our Python for our test. So I'm going to create a new file. I'll just call this file test.py. Okay, and we'll be talking about the while loop now, and then we'll talk about the for loop, and then we'll do a little bit of inputs validation, and we have the class over, and we'll move on to something else. Okay, so let's look at the while loop. Okay, we'll basically talk about while loop in this class alone, just to make the lesson a little bit not a little bit short, not too long. So the while loop, actually we can use it to execute a set of statements as long as a condition is true, like what I discussed. For instance, if I have, let's say I have x and I say that this is equal to 1, I just initialize that, and I say, okay, the variable x, I assign a value of 1 to it. So the while loop is actually written like this in Python, which we have seen before. I say y, I can say y(x) is less than the value, let's say value 10, and then the function, I put a colon there, and every other block that comes will be executed as long as this condition is met. So I want to print, you can do anything here now, but I want to print the value of x as long as x is less than 10. But I have to do something. I have to increment the value of x, because initially I assigned a value of 1 to x. Okay, so to increment, I can just say x is equal to x plus 1, or I can say x is plus equal to 1, which is the same thing. So if I save this code and I click on my run to run it, we can see I have, let me clear the screen here. And let's run this again. So we'll run. You can see we have uh, 1 to 9, okay, because we say so far that x is less than 10. If we say less than or equal to 10, we make 10 inclusive, okay. And if we clear this and run this program again, we have 1 to 10. Now I want you to understand that the operator we're using here, we are using the comparison operator. So we are comparing the variable x, which is an integer, to the digits, okay, the integer value of 10, and then we want to keep on printing x as long as x is less than or equal to 10. So we come here to increment. We just test this with the first. We still have the same results. So if I clear this and I run my code again, you see we have the same results. So the increment is very important. Without it, we have an infinite loop, and you wouldn't want your computer memory to be occupied by that. So you have to put an increment for the while loop not to have an not to loop forever. Okay. Now let's talk about a few things that you require when you're using, well, when you want to make decision in your project, which where to use the why and where not to. Okay, so but there are a few things you need to understand about the while loop. The while loop requires relevant variables to be ready. Okay, so for instance, there are in an indexing variable, which is the x that we have there, and we set it to 1, we can set it to 0, and then we can have something like a break statement. Now the break statement can stop the loop even if the condition is true. Okay, so for instance, let's say we want to stop the loop whenever x is equal to 3. Okay, we don't want to keep on printing, so we'll see where the break statement will come in. Of course, the increment will come at the last, so I will just have something like this. So okay, if the condition is if x is equal to 3, I don't want the loop to continue. Okay, so I'll just come here. I can put the if statement and say if x is equal to maybe 4, okay, I just want to break. Okay, so I'll break out of the loop. Okay, so if I save this and I clear my command, my terminal, and I run, you see it will not, it stops at 4. It stops looping at 4. So the break statement is actually used to actually break out of the loop when a particular condition your testing is met. Okay, another thing you need to understand is we can have another thing called the continue statement. With the continue statement, we can stop the iteration and then continue with the next. For instance, we can say if x is equal to 4, then continue. Okay, so we skip the value of 4 and then we continue. Now, for instance, we can come here, instead of break here now, we say continue. But you understand that the print will have to come, the print will not come here now. And also the increments will not be here. So what we'll have now is we say yx is less than or equal to 10. We want to have our increments. We say x plus equal to 1. And then we'll now say if x is equal to 4, we want to continue. But then we will have our prints. And then we'll now have our print x. So if we run this now, let me clear my terminal and I run this, you see 4 is omitted. We want to run this program from, it starts from 2, 3, instead of 4 we have 5. So it jumps 4, because when the value of x is equal to 4, we want to skip that and continue to the next printable values. So just take note of the break, the continue, and then let's talk about the else statement. Now with the else statement, we can run the block of code once when the condition no longer is true. So when the condition is no longer true, we just run the code once. Okay, so I'm going to still use the same example, and then I'll come here. I'll say x is less than or equal to 10. I want to print x, and then I'll iterate it. I will say x, just iterate the value of x plus or equal to 1. I'll say x you can see now the indentation now is the same level with indent with the y. On that print, I can say x is no longer less than 10. So let me just use less than here now. All right, so if I save this, clear the terminal, and I run, you see x is no longer less than 10. Okay, so when it's finished looping, you can have a statement like this. Okay, so the else statement is actually used to define that condition. Now I would like us to look at a little bit about input validation. So we're going to do a little bit on input validation. Now, in the previous class I told you, we talked about how to accept input from the user by using the input function. Okay, so we can actually use the input and the y combined together to check if a particular data type is actually imputed or entered by the user. Okay, we're going to do a little bit example, and then we check how this works. So now I'm going to clear everything I have here on the screen, and of course let me clear my terminal. So I'm going to be using the while statement, the while loop rather, and then I'll also use the input, and we check if the user enters a particular data or data type or not. Okay, so let's say we have the y is true, y true. We want to request that the user enters a particular enters a value. So we say enter. Let's say we want to check the age. Okay, we want to ask for the age of the user. Say enter your age. You can know how our ATM machine works. If you enter a wrong value, of course you get an error message. So when you say enter age, we will request that the user enters his or her age. Now we can say age is equal to, now I want to take the inputs, and then we're going to be using the try and except. In Python we say try, we say age is equal to, now we're going to be checking if it is an integer. If it is an integer, that's fine, but if it is null, we say except, and then we say print. We want to say please enter a numeric. If the user enters a string, of course we want to say please use a numeric digits. Okay, and then we'll now use our continue. See how handy this becomes now. We'll say continue. Remember what we talked about continue. Okay, so we want to, if this continue will go back again and ask the user to enter the value. Now, if the user enters the value now, we want to check again. We want to check if the age is less than 1. That is, if it's a negative value, want to ask the user to enter a positive value. Say, please enter a positive number. Okay, and want to continue again. Want to skip. Okay, want to continue. We say continue, and then we break, and then we now print the age of the user. Okay, using we're going to be using interpolation here now. Let's we'll talk about this later. Interpolation is actually used to inject in a variable into a string. Okay, so this is how interpolation is done in Python. We use the f, and then we say we have our string. We say you can say your age is, now this is where the variable will now come in. Okay, so inside here now we'll just put the age. Okay, so if we run this program, let me just explain from the beginning again. So we're going to be checking if true, why true. We want to ask the user to enter their age, a value at the command prompt, and then the user will present an an input option onto the to the user, so the user will enter a value, and if the value, we're going to be checking if the value the user enters is actually an integer. If it is an integer, that's good. We'll just control. But if it's not an integer, I want to, that is by using this try, we want to say except now, and this is like catching the error, and then we'll ask the user please to enter a numeric value. If the user for the user to be able to enter a numeric value, you want to skip and continue back to the input until the user enters a numeric value, or a value that is accepted, which is an integer that we are trying here. It will keep on asking the user to enter a value. If the user keeps on entering a wrong data type, it will keep on asking the user until the condition is satisfied, and then we'll now have the printed statement. So let's run this and see how it works. So we say, you can see now at the command prompt here, we ask the user is being asked to enter their age. Now let's say we enter a string. Instead of age, we can say we just enter Tom and click enter. You say please use a numeric digit. If I enter another string again, it will keep on repeating until the condition is met, until the user enters the right data type. So if the user enters a negative value, let's say -1, you're going to check for the next condition. You say please enter a positive number, and then if the user eventually now enters maybe 25, a positive number, you see your age is 25. Now we can actually do more check, like if the age entered is actually less than maybe if it is between 9 and 13, we can say your age is actually we can say please, we need you have to be more than you have to be up to 18 for you to be able to use this program. So we can do more check. Okay, so you can see how we combine the while loop here, and also the if statements to check or to validate a data type or data being entered at the command prompt. So I want to end this lesson here. There are a lot of things you can actually do with this. So I would like you to check it out and just run some other tests. Maybe you want to check If the value entered is less than 18, you want to ask the user, please, you have to be up to 18 years for you to be able to use this program. So thank you guys for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'll see you guys in the next lesson.